This happened the summer after my sophomore year of college. Me, Tyler, Marissa, and Ben had been talking for months about doing a cheap camping trip somewhere in northern Arizona. None of us had much money, and we were all working part-time jobs, so a real vacation wasn't happening. The plan was simple. Load up Tyler's old Subaru, drive out toward the Kaibab National Forest, and find a dispersed camping spot off one of the forest roads. We'd done similar trips before. Nothing crazy. Just a couple nights away from town, a cooler full of cheap food, a case of beer, and some folding chairs. We left around noon and got to the forest just before sunset. I remember the light filtering through the tall pines, and that dry, dusty smell you get when the ground hasn't seen rain in a while. The road we turned onto was narrow and uneven, with faded tire tracks weaving between trees. We drove maybe 2 miles in before finding a clearing that looked flat enough for tents. It wasn't an official site. No fire ring, no signs. Just a patch of dirt and sparse grass, surrounded by trees, spaced wide enough that you could still see sky between them. It felt quiet. Not eerie quiet, just still. We parked in a loose L shape and started unloading. Tyler and I set up our tents about 20 feet apart. Marissa and Ben shared a bigger 2-person tent, a little closer to the tree line. We made a small fire pit out of rocks we found nearby, nothing fancy. That night was normal. We grilled hot dogs over the fire, passed around beers, and played a card game on top of the cooler. We joked about how off the grid we were, even though we still had cell service. At some point, Ben started telling a story about a guy he knew who swore he'd seen something in the woods once, and Marissa threw a marshmallow at him and told him to shut up. It felt easy, familiar. Around midnight, the temperature dropped fast. That desert cold creeps in once the sun disappears. We put out the fire, double-checked the cars were locked, and went to our tents. I've always been a light sleeper when camping. Every little noise, wind, animals, even my own breathing usually wakes me up at least once or twice. But that night, I don't remember waking up at all. No coyotes, no wind, no shifting in my sleeping bag, just black. The next thing I remember is opening my eyes and seeing daylight through the fabric of my tent. For a second, I didn't move. Something felt wrong. Not in a dramatic way, just off. Like when you wake up from a nap and can't immediately place what day it is. I unzipped the tent and stepped out, and I just stood there. All 3 tents, including mine, had been moved. Not far, maybe 30 feet total, but they were no longer scattered the way we'd set them up. They were arranged in a near-perfect triangle, evenly spaced, with the open doors all facing inward toward the center, toward the fire pit. Except the fire pit wasn't where we left it. The ring of rocks had been rebuilt in the exact middle of the triangle. The rocks were stacked higher this time, almost carefully arranged, like someone had taken the time to make it symmetrical. For a second, I genuinely wondered if I was still half asleep. I looked down at my tent stakes. They were still driven deep into the ground. The guy lines were taut. It wasn't like the tent had been dragged while it collapsed. It was fully assembled. I knelt down and pressed my hand into the dirt where the tent now sat. The soil was firm, undisturbed. Tyler's zipper opened a few seconds later. He stepped out, looked around once, and his face just went blank. "You seeing this?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He just slowly turned in a circle. Marissa and Ben came out next. There was no yelling, no immediate panic, just this heavy silence, like we were all waiting for someone to explain the joke. But no one did. We checked inside our tents. Nothing was missing. My backpack was exactly where I'd left it. My phone was still plugged into my power bank. Tyler's keys were still in the little mesh pouch inside his tent. The cars were untouched. Ben was the first to say something. "Did we move them?" he asked. Tyler shook his head immediately. "No way." Marissa frowned. We didn't drink that much. We hadn't. 2, maybe 3 beers each over several hours. Not blackout territory. Not even close. We walked to where the tents had originally been. You could still see the flattened patches of grass and indentations from the stakes. clear evidence of their original positions. Between those spots and where the tents now sat were faint drag marks, but the marks stopped about 10 feet short of the current positions, like they'd been pulled partway and then lifted. None of us said that out loud. Marissa crouched by the rebuilt fire pit. "This wasn't like this," she said quietly. She was right. The rocks were stacked almost deliberately, balanced, even. Ben let out a short laugh, the kind people do when they're uncomfortable. "Maybe we sleepwalked. As a group." "Sleep camped," Tyler muttered. I wanted that to make sense. But how would 4 people in separate tents unzip themselves, relocate fully assembled tents 30 feet, restake them perfectly, and not wake up once? And then there was something else. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. "Did anyone else have weird dreams?" Marissa looked up immediately. "Yeah, I hadn't remembered dreaming at all. Just that heavy black sleep." "What about?" Ben asked. She hesitated. "I was walking in a straight line, like being guided, and someone was counting. I couldn't see who, but I could hear them, counting my steps." Tyler's expression shifted. "I had something like that," he said. "Not the same exactly, but I was following someone, in a line, like marching." Ben shook his head. "That's just because we were in the woods. It gets in your head." But his voice wasn't convincing. We all stood there for a moment, looking at the triangle of tents, evenly spaced, facing inwardly. At the center point, without really discussing it, we started dismantling the fire pit. Maybe it was just something to do, something normal. Tyler grabbed one of the top rocks and pulled it off the stack. It slipped from his hands and hit the ground. The sound echoed more than it should have. And then we heard it. A low, distant grinding noise. Not loud, not suddenly, just present. It sounded like stone dragging against stone. Slow, heavy, somewhere deeper in the trees. We all froze at the exact same time. The sound wasn't coming from one clear direction. It felt like it was behind us, or to the side, or maybe underground. It was hard to place. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then it stopped. The forest went completely still. No birds, no wind. I remember feeling something shift inside my chest. Not fear exactly. More like recognition. Like whatever had moved our tents had just noticed we'd disturbed something. Tyler didn't say a word. He just turned and started pulling stakes out of his tent. Ben was already unzipping his and stuffing the poles into their bag. Marissa grabbed the cooler. We moved fast, not frantic, but synchronized, like we'd silently agreed. No one suggested staying. No one suggested investigating. Within minutes, the tents were down and thrown into the back of the Subaru. We didn't even fully collapse the chairs. We just shoved them in. The whole thing probably took under 5 minutes, but it felt stretched, like time had slowed enough for us to feel every second. As we pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The clearing looked normal again, just trees and dirt and that slightly disturbed patch where the fire pit had been. Nothing is chasing us. Nothing visible at all. We didn't talk much on the drive back. Ben tried once. "So, what do we think that was?" No one answered. That was almost 6 years ago. We all graduated, moved to different cities. Tyler's in Phoenix now. Marissa went to Seattle. Ben's somewhere in Texas, last I heard. We still keep in touch in a group chat. Birthdays, random memes, life updates. But we've never talked about that trip again. Not once. Sometimes I think about texting them and asking if they remember it the same way I do. If they ever wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that triangle, about counting. But I don't. Because there's something about that morning that feels unfinished. Like we walked away before something fully happened. And every now and then, when I'm camping, even somewhere crowded, I'll wake up from a dead sleep and feel that same heavy stillness. Like I've been moved, and just haven't stepped outside to see it yet. My name's Tyler. I was 24 when this happened, about 3 years ago now. I still think about it more than I'd like to admit, especially when I'm trying to fall asleep and the house is too quiet. It's not that anything unexplainable happened. It's just the way it all unfolded. The timing, the feeling that we were one bad decision away from something a lot worse. That weekend was supposed to be simple. 3 separate camping trips over the course of one summer. 3 normal getaways. And somehow, all of them turned into something I can't fully shake. The first one was in early June. Just me and my older brother Matt. He'd just gotten out of a long relationship, and I figured getting him out into the woods would help clear his head. We picked a small national forest campground about 2 hours from home. Nothing extreme. Just a handful of spaced out sites, a pit toilet, and a gravel loop road. We got there around 5 o'clock p.m. The place was mostly empty. There was a white van parked at one of the far sites, but we didn't see anyone around it. Matt joked that it was either a serial killer or a birdwatcher. I told him those weren't mutually exclusive. We set up our tent, started a fire, cracked open a couple beers. It felt good. Normal. We talked about his breakup, about work, about stupid stuff we did in high school. It was quiet out there in that way. That feels peaceful at first. Around dusk, I noticed someone standing near the tree line across the loop road. Just still, watching maybe. Or maybe just looking in our direction. I nudged Matt. See that? He squinted. Probably from the van. The figure didn't wave, didn't move closer. Just stood there for a few seconds, then slowly walked back into the trees. It wasn't threatening, just strange. We brushed it off. Public campground. People wander. Later that night, after the fire burned down, we turned in. I woke up sometime after midnight to the sound of slow footsteps on gravel. Not hiking boots crunching confidently. More like careful steps. I held my breath and listened. The footsteps circled our tent once, stopped, then continued. Matt whispered, "You hear that?" Yeah. We both stayed completely still. A beam of light slid across the thin fabric of the tent. Not a quick flash. It lingered, like someone was examining us. Then it moved on. We didn't say anything for a long time after that. Eventually, the footsteps faded. In the morning, we found nothing missing. No footprints we could clearly identify. The white van was gone. We packed up earlier than planned. The second trip happened in July. This time, it was me and my girlfriend, Hannah. We drove up to a lakeside campground that had decent reviews. Family-friendly, well-maintained. It was busier than the first place. Kids riding bikes. People grilling. A couple in their 60s across from us in an RV. It felt safe. Almost boring. We spent the afternoon kayaking and swimming. By the time the sun started dropping, most of the families had retreated into their campers. That's when I noticed a man walking slowly between sites. Not unusual in itself, but he wasn't carrying anything. No flashlight, no cooler, no dog, just walking. He paused briefly at ours. I looked at our cooler, our tent, then made eye contact with Hannah. "You folks staying the night?" he asked. "Yeah," I said casually. He nodded. "You should lock your food up tight. Raccoons around here are bold." "Thanks," Hannah said politely. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Then he moved on. We locked everything in the car anyway. Around 2:30 a.m., Hannah shook me awake. "There's someone outside." At first I thought it was raccoons, but then I heard it. The faint click of a car door handle being tested. One, then another. Our car. I sat up slowly. The shadow of someone passed across the tent wall. "Hey!" I shouted. The sound stopped instantly. I scrambled out of the tent with my phone flashlight on. By the time I got outside, the figure was already halfway down the row of campsites, moving calmly, not running, just walking. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the build looked familiar. In the morning, nothing was taken, but there were clear smudges on the car handles, like someone had tried every door. The man from earlier was gone. The third trip was in late August. This one was the worst. It was supposed to be a solo overnight. Just me. A small state forest campground about an hour away. I needed a reset before starting a new job. The campground had maybe 8 sites. Only 2 were occupied when I arrived. Mine and one near the entrance with an older pickup truck parked beside a faded green tent. I didn't see anyone at that site. I set up quickly and went for a short hike before sunset. When I came back, I noticed something odd. My camping chair had been moved, not far, just turned slightly, facing the woods instead of the fire pit. I stood there for a long moment, trying to remember how I'd left it. Maybe I'd bumped it. Maybe the ground was uneven. Still, I hadn't been gone for more than 40 minutes. I scanned the tree line. Nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid. After dark, the forest felt different than the other trips. Quieter, heavy. Around 11 o'clock p.m., I heard a branch snap behind my tent. Not close, maybe 20 or 30 feet back. "Hello?" I called out. No response. Probably deer. 5 minutes later, another snap. Closer. Then the unmistakable sound of slow footsteps in leaves. Not circling this time. Approaching. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out quickly, heart hammering. The beam cut through trees and brush until it landed on someone standing just beyond the edge of my campsite. A man. He didn't raise his hands, didn't speak, just stared at me. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Long pause. "I thought this site was empty," he finally said. "It's not." Another pause. Then he nodded once. "Right." He turned and walked back into the darkness. I didn't sleep. Around 3 o'clock a.m., I heard something that made my stomach drop. The slow, deliberate unzip of my tent door. I was inside. I hadn't left it open. The zipper moved an inch. Then another. I lunged forward and shoved my hand against the fabric. "Stop!" The movement froze. For a split second, there was pressure on the other side, like someone's hand resting against mine through the thin nylon. Then it was released. I heard quick footsteps retreating. I didn't wait. I shoved everything into my truck in record time, not caring about neatness. I kept scanning the trees, expecting him to reappear. As I drove past the entrance site, I saw the green tent. It was empty, unzipped. The pickup truck was gone. I reported it to the ranger station on my way out. They said they'd look into it. I never heard anything back. Maybe it was 3 different people. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe I just happened to cross paths with the wrong kinds of campers 3 times in one summer. But sometimes I think about that hand pressing back against mine through the tent fabric, and I can't help wondering how close I came to not being here to tell it. This first one happened about a year ago. I was 31 at the time, working remote tech support for a medical software company out of Denver. The job was fine, paid the bills, but I was burned out in a way that sleep didn't fix. My dad had passed that winter, and I had just gotten out of a long relationship a few months after that. I was living alone for the first time in years, and the silence in my apartment felt loud. One night, around 1:30 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I was just sitting on my couch, scrolling through old photos when I ended up on some Colorado hiking forum. Somebody mentioned a dispersed camping area out past Gunnison that almost nobody uses anymore. That phrase stuck with me. Almost nobody. By 9 a.m., I'd requested 2 days off. By noon, I was packing my truck. The drive took about 4 hours, interstate most of the way. Then, a state highway that slowly narrowed until it felt like I was driving through a tunnel of trees. Eventually, I turned onto a gravel county road, then onto a Forest Service road that definitely wasn't maintained. Potholes, washouts, fallen branches. My GPS kept trying to reroute me back to the pavement. The last mile wasn't even really a road, just 2 faint tire tracks cutting through tall grass. I had to get out twice to drag deadfall off the path. I remember thinking, if I get stuck out here, that's on me. I finally reached a small clearing near a bend in a shallow creek. It was quiet in a way that felt heavy. No distant highway noise, no planes, just wind moving through pine needles. I started setting up my tent when I noticed something off to the left, about 20 yards into the trees. A folding camp chair, one of those cheap aluminum ones, faded blue fabric, half collapsed. It was facing toward the clearing, like someone had been sitting there watching. There was no other gear around it. I walked over and called out, just in case. Nothing. The chair was damp and streaked with dirt, like it had been left through at least one season. Underneath it was a small spiral notebook. Most of the pages were blank, except the last 10 or so. They were filled with tally marks, clean, deliberate groups of 5. Page after page of them. The final page had 3 groups and then 2 extra lines. 17. There were no dates, no words, just marks. I told myself it was probably someone counting days, or fish, or something normal. But I slipped it into my pack anyway. That first night, I fell asleep faster than I expected. I was exhausted from the drive and the hike I had taken along the creek. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night. No idea what time. It was pitch black inside the tent. At first I thought I'd just had a dream. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the gravel. Not heavy like boots. Bare, soft, deliberate steps circling the outside of my tent. Slow. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. I didn't move. I kept my breathing steady, hoping whoever it was would think I was asleep. The footsteps stopped near my head. Then I heard whispering. It wasn't loud enough to make out words, just low murmurs, like 2 people standing close together having a private conversation. My skin went cold. I was miles from the nearest marked campsite. No one should have known I was there. The whispering shifted to the other side of the tent. Then fingers pressed against the fabric. I could see the shape of them in silhouette from the faint starlight. They dragged slowly downward, stretching the nylon. I keep a handgun when I camp. I'm not dramatic about it, but I don't go that remote without one. I slid my hand over to it as quietly as I could. The zipper at the entrance twitched. Someone tugged it once, twice, I said, as steady as I could. I'm armed. Walk away. Everything went silent. Not even wind. Then, suddenly, footsteps moved fast in opposite directions. At least 2 people. Maybe 3. I heard them moving through brush, not even trying to hide it anymore. I didn't sleep after that. When the sun finally came up, I unzipped the tent with the gun in my hand. The folding chair was gone. The spot where it had been was just flattened grass. No notebook either. I hadn't left it outside. I'd put it in my pack. But when I checked, it wasn't there. I tore my gear apart. It was just gone. Around my campsite, about 15 feet out, were barefoot prints in the dirt. Different sizes, some deep, like someone had stood there a long time. Near the creek, carved into the bark of a tree, were tally marks. 5 groups, and then 3, 17. I didn't stay another hour. I packed up so fast I bent one of my tent poles. I kept scanning the tree line, expecting to see someone watching. Backing out of that narrow path felt like it took a lifetime. I kept checking my mirrors for someone stepping into the road behind me. I never reported it. What would I even say? Someone counted near my tent? What bothers me most is that if I hadn't spoken up, I don't know if they would have stopped at the zipper. The second story happened when I was 24. I was working as a seasonal park employee near Flagstaff. That summer was rough. Long hours. Bad breakup. I started doing overnight solo trips on my days off just to clear my head. One weekend, I drove out past the edge of Coconino National Forest to a spot a coworker vaguely mentioned. Hard to find, he'd said. Nobody bothers. The road out there was mostly sand and rock. I got stuck once and had to dig myself out with a small shovel. By the time I reached the area, it was nearly sunset. There was an old fire ring in the clearing, which I liked. It meant at least someone had survived out there before. While gathering wood, I found a glass jar tucked into a hollow log. Inside were folded pieces of paper. Each one had a date written on it. Every date exactly 7 days apart. No messages, just dates. The earliest one was almost a year old. The most recent was the previous week. I remember feeling this wave of unease, but convincing myself it was some kind of time capsule thing. That night, I woke up to breathing, not footsteps, not whispers. Breathing. Slow, close, just outside the tent wall by my feet. I froze. It didn't move for a long time. Just steady inhale, exhale. Then, something pressed against the tent. Not pushing in, leaning. The nylon bowed inward. I grabbed my flashlight and clicked it on. The shadow disappeared instantly. I scrambled for the zipper and shouted that I'd call the police. Branches snapped in retreat. In the morning, the fire ring was dismantled. Stones scattered in a perfect circle around my tent, and on one of the rocks, scratched into the soot, was a date. That day's date, 7 days after the last paper in the jar. I left the jar. I didn't want it anymore. The third one was more recent. I was 33, living in Oregon, trying to get back into backpacking after swearing it off. This one was supposed to be controlled. Marked trail, popular region. But I went off trail, just a little, found a ridge with a great view and decided to camp there instead of the designated site. About 50 yards downhill, I noticed what looked like a tarp partially buried in leaves. Under it was a sleeping bag, rotting, and beside it, a small handheld audio recorder. I wish I'd left it alone. There were dozens of short recordings. Each one is just a few seconds long. Night sounds, wind, sometimes faint whispering. The files were labeled with numbers, 1 through 63. The last one was blank, except for breathing. I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard the distinct click of something being set down outside my tent. Then, slow footsteps circling me. Then, the unmistakable sound of a zipper being tested. I didn't wait that long. I racked my shotgun loud enough to echo. Whoever was out there bolted. At first light, the tarp, sleeping bag, and recorder were gone. In their place, stuck upright in the soil with a small camping knife, was a strip of bark carved with tally marks. 6 groups of 10. And 3 more. 63. I don't camp alone anymore. I never filed reports about any of it. There's no proof, no photos, just my word. What keeps me up sometimes isn't the footsteps or the whispering. It's the counting, because in every case, it felt like I showed up right before the next mark was going to be made.